So thank you so much for joining us, Pat. It's, as always, a huge pleasure and an honour to have you with us. And I'm sure everyone in the room has read your bio, those who don't know you already. But just for those who are new to Pat, her indigenous name is Woman Stands Shining. And she's from the Dine Navajo tribe. She's a mother, grandmother, activist, artist, writer, ceremonial leader, and international speaker. She's a very powerful voice for global peace and an active participant in indigenous peoples' gatherings all over the world, drawing on indigenous ways of knowing to reframe questions of sustainability. She's been an incredibly important teacher to St. Ethelburgas and our networks. And when I think of Pat, my heart comes into this very deep and grateful bow. And Pat has actually lived in France when she was younger. She told me when we chatted earlier, so she knows this land in some way. Yeah. And also the time that we'll be spending on the land after dinner with Pat's words and practices in our heart is kind of heading towards dusk, which is Pat's power time, which is really good to know. So Pat, a hugely warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and there with you. The magic of Zoom kind of teaching us that all times are happening at the same time, and maybe all places are at the same place at the same time too. Because I'm really feeling the earth and the land over there where you are, and what a beautiful place you're in. I also want to say what I was going to say to you, Sharon, earlier is I was just very moved by your story of picking up from London and seeking out the land where you are, listening to that calling, and taking that leap of faith to make this relationship, and the fact that you've made this relationship and now you're sharing this relationship with all of us, and that was just very moving to me, so I just wanted to name that. So maybe I'm going to light my fire here, and I'm going to ask a member of someone who identifies from Men's Nation if they would be willing to light the fire where you are. Great, thank you. So before you do, I'll say a few words about it, and then when I light mine, you can light yours over there. One fire, really. So I wanted to bring in these elders. My human elders told me that there's no school higher than the sacred fireplace, the ceremonial fireplace, that will never have all of the wisdom and understanding. There's no university that can touch all of the teaching and wisdom of the sacred fireplace. And that is not a metaphor, friends, at all. And so I'm not speaking poetry and euphemism. I've come to learn what they're talking about, and I know of it. I can't know everything that the fireplace has to teach, but I wanted to bring that here first and foremost for us here to call upon that wisdom, and also to say, I'm also calling upon those things that join all of us together as a human family. Because as was pointed out to me, if our ancestors did not have a relationship with fire, with the fireplace, then we wouldn't be here. And that is still true at this moment. I have this little lamp. It just flickered when I said that. I have this lamp here. But it goes back to fire also. This electricity that we're using right now goes back to fire and our relationship to fire. And we may find that out pretty soon, how close we are to the fire again. And for myself, I don't shy away from that day, honestly. I think it's going to be a joyous day ultimately. So I also want to say that I did ceremony with the Ashwar people in the rainforest in Ecuador. And when I was there with them in their ceremony, I saw this ceremony house. And when I went in, there were elders of every tradition sitting with their backs against the wall. And they were all looking to the center. And they were all praying. I'm saying they were praying over us. And they were the ones who gave us each of our ceremonies all over this Mother Earth in collaboration and cooperation with this Mother Earth. I say culture isn't a human construct. Culture is the Mother Earth expressing herself as human being in any given place. So we are Earth. So I want to ask for the elders of the ceremony house of the world from all of our lineages. Those elders are sitting there for each of us, and ask that as they look at their fireplace, that their fireplace be connected to our fireplace. And I welcome them to have their input into this meeting here right now. And if you all desire, into your meeting over the next days. So with that, go ahead and light this fire. Ask you to as well. Acknowledge our ancestors who tended the fire, respected the fire, cared for the fire, listened to the fire, and in that way had thriving life for millennia. Thank you. And then I'm going to ask for someone who identifies as a member of Women's Nation to come and acknowledge this water. Thank you. So I had already had a chance to acknowledge the water this morning, but I am really thinking about this one today, and just to say that, you know, we say holy mini wachozane waka, mini wachoni, that's what came out of Standing Rock here, what we now call the United States, when all the people gathered on behalf of water, and to say that money and even law point out that it is going to need to submit to this one. The law of the water has to come first. And the law of the water is this, that it connects all living things together as one family. Every living thing depends upon this one. And I say that, you know, in my science book when I was a child, it talked about the water cycle, and it talks about how the oceans evaporate and go up to the clouds, and then the clouds travel and rain down on the mountains, and then the streams go down the mountains and into the rivers, and then the rivers go back to the sea. And they say this is the water cycle. Well, I think they left out something extraordinarily important. So actually, the other part of the water cycle is that this one, every single living being waits for this water to come. And I live in the desert right now, and we're having extraordinary fires here. And we have been so humbled in the dryness, so humbled by this fire growing. We have the largest fire in New Mexico history, has been burning, and there was no end in sight, and we had no way to stop it. All we could do was just pray, really pray with tears, and it's been kind of extraordinary to be with my whole community, even people who aren't earth-based spiritual practitioners. You don't have to be that to understand how critical this one is, how critical it is that this one falls from the sky. And so to join with all my relatives, my newfound relatives, as this water brought us together, to just really be humbled and really weep and really beg and cry and ask for mercy from the sky and have this water fall. And it finally came last week, and it's been raining and raining, and we're so grateful. We're so grateful. So this one is so many things, but what I was going to say is this one, you know, so every living being is opening their mouth and reaching, or opening their body and reaching out for this one every single day. It has to be there. So I like to think about that, and I also think about how this one passes through every single life form. It is filtered through our organism and comes back to Earth. And then she filters it again so that we can partake of it again. That's actually a huge part of this cycle. And also, it passes not only through our organism, but through our consciousness. It passes through the consciousness of zebra. It passes through the consciousness of alligator and platypus and dragonfly and ant, lizard, owl. And then it all comes back together into one consciousness. So when I drink this water, I'm actually drinking the consciousness of every life form as well. Tyrannosaurus Rex had a drink of this water right here. Imagine. This water also holds all of the ceremonies of all of the peoples, all of our highest spiritual wisdom, all of our highest spiritual understanding, all of our highest knowledge of what we now call sustainability. We're going to talk about that word. I don't really care for that word too much anymore. But all of that knowledge, because humanity has known, and there are humans who still know how to live in place in health, harmony, and happiness. We tend to call them indigenous peoples. It's not impossible. We've known it, and it exists right now on the planet. So this one also carries that knowledge. So I think about this and say, look, every time you stand in the shower, think about what you're literally being showered with life, all the consciousness, all of the lineage, all of the future. Every time you drink, every time you cook with this one. So just want to acknowledge this holy water of life, holy mani chosen. So I'm going to ask you if you would, sister, if you would just go ahead and fill that ladle and pour it into that water 4 times to acknowledge the water of the 4 directions. And we ask that every living thing has the water that it needs in all the directions as you do that. So yeah, just fill the ladle and pour it back into the bowl 4 times. Yeah, thank you so much. So I invite this water to also inform this time together. And I'm going to have this water listening. And then when we're finished, I'm going to ask for this. I'm going to pour this water onto the earth. I'm going to ask her to take a look at us and see where we're at. See how far we've come, how much farther we need to go, what kinds of teachings we still need, what kinds of nurturing and love and care we still need. And then as I offer this water that's listening here back to the earth, I'm going to ask that way the Mother Earth is going to know what we need here, and ask her to meet us with every footstep that we take. So even though here I am way over here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then you're over there in France, our feet are touching the same Mother Earth. So we can connect, we can reach each other quite literally that way. So I want to, this time is going to go really fast, I can already tell. Well, what do I know? Actually, I don't know. I just asked time to open here and make space for everything that has to happen here, that would be good to have happen here. So I want to sing a song too. I'm going to sing a grandmother calling song and have them be present with us here, and ask for the grandmothers of all our ancestral grandmothers, those ones who actually got all the way to the other side and sit in that seat of knowing that we can't know while we're walking on this earth. They have input from spiritual entities. They have input from cosmos. I mean, I don't even know everything that they have input from, but we can know that they also know what life was like here, and then they have this expanded knowledge now, and so they can actually be far ahead of us. No matter how, if maybe their life was very hard, maybe their life, maybe there was tragedy, like there was for my grandmother's, huge tragedy, terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. But I don't see them face down in the dirt in their own blood anymore. I see them risen in consciousness, in understanding, in insight, still with all of their love for me, and your grandmothers too, all of the love for you. And they're out in front of us, and they're calling to us. So I'm going to call back to them with this song, whatever your lineage is from each of the four directions on this Mother Earth, from all corners of the earth, as they say. Call them in and ask them to be here. Also the spiritual grandmothers, you know, like the blue corn mother. We need this one. The white corn mother. White buffalo calf woman.
Come
Um, changing woman. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and mute, because that way if there's rustling or sounds, it won't interrupt the song. So we'll see how we do. See if Zoom lets us get away with a song here. So you'll hear me sing it 4 times. That's for each of the directions. And then for me, I always picture the grandmothers come dancing in their ceremonial clothing, their traditional clothing. Can hear the shells rattling, can hear the bells rattling, can hear the rush of the wind of the feathers and the fans, the smell of the herbs that they're carrying. So I just want to ask you to feel that as we're calling them in here. Calling them to be with us here and now, but I ask them to travel with you this whole time that you're together. So. Weha hey ya, we ya ya wero. Weha hey ya, we ya ya wero. Eh yo, weha hey ya, we ya ya wero. Eh yo, weha ya. Wehaya, ehaya, weya, ya, wero, ea, eo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo, wehaya, ehaya, wehaya, ehaya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo, wehaya, ehaya, wehaya, ehaya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo, wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo, wehaya, ehaya, wehaya, ehaya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Yeah, yeah. Let's take a few deep breaths together. Let's inhale and exhale. And again, inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Mm. Mm. So perhaps some of you are already very aware of this. This is, I mean, I've kind of heard about it, but I haven't really been practicing, how our breath, um, you know, I show you that I sing the song partly as a way of knowing what is called for here, but it's also a way of knowing. So maybe you could feel how it changes the space. Feel what happens in your body as that song is being sung. Feel perceptions opening to be able to receive this spiritual arriving, and also arriving from all of the earth, the grandmother deer, the grandmother buffalo, grandmother elephant, grandmother eagle, grandmother owl. Um, so I'm going to say also that our breath is a really powerful way of changing our field of perception. So, I talked to my fire keeper, Jesse Rose. So I asked for a good blessing on Jesse Rose today. He's in a similar position. I'm in my mom's house because my mom is 98 and I participate in taking care of her. I took care of her all through the pandemic, and now my daughter is her primary caregiver, but I come to substitute. So I'm over here subbing right now. And then my dear firekeeper, Jesse Rose, he's also taking care of his mom. And he's been doing that through the pandemic, and he's not really getting much of a break. So just really ask for good prayers for him. But when he was firekeeping for me in our ceremonies, back when we used to be able to have fires, we can't even have a fire. I haven't been in ceremony here in New Mexico for years now, hardly at all. It's really, really hard. But I used to tell him how I wanted things at my fireplace. So not only do I want the fire kept, burning bright and not too high, not too low, and I don't want any orphan charcoals rolling around everywhere. I want it all gathered. I want it contained. So there's that part. But the other part is what kind of consciousness is going on around that fireplace. What kind of words are being spoken there? And so I talked to him about something I call hard mind. Hard mind is the mind you get when you're making your point, when you're in debate, when you're expounding your beautiful stored knowledge on any subject, and that's what I call hard mind. So when I'm sitting here in front of this fire that is lit, this water that I've invoked and acknowledged in this way, then I need to be a humble child here. This is not something that modern world paradigm cherishes or values. What we get rewarded for in modern world paradigm is having the best idea, standing head and shoulders above the next guy or gal or them, and so bringing this intellect down into a peaceful place, into a place of receptivity, into a place of being teachable. And so that's what I know you're working on. You're working on opening your perception to the earth where you are. When you have the beautiful river, let's see, the La Varenne, I believe it's called. I don't know how close that is to you. I hope it's close enough for you to get there. But so to be able to open the perception, and so we can practice right here with this fire, with this. I mean, this fireplace is connected to the elders that have brought humanity through worlds. From indigenous perspective, we call this, some people call it the fifth world, some people call it the sixth world, but that implies that we have lost worlds before. Indigenous history holding is much longer than Western science, much longer. It travels through all of these worlds. And so these elders, the fireplace, and the ones who are sitting in their ceremony house, they saw us through all of those worlds. This water has traveled through all of those worlds. So, time to humble down. Get this one a little bit under control. It's been running wild. It's like an undisciplined child. That's what they told me in one of the ceremonies. They said, you know how uncomfortable it is to be around a child who's had no upbringing, who's had no discipline, not like punitive discipline, but has not been taught to discipline their impulses just a little bit, to be able to be social, to be able to be with others in a peaceful, harmonious way. They said that's how the human mind is these days. And so it's uncomfortable for us to be around, but it's probably uncomfortable for all this life to be around too. It just goes and does anything, anytime, anywhere, just blurts things out. Just so I'm gonna ask us to think about this this hard mind versus the soft, the open, the receptive. Maybe a lot of feeling came up when I was singing that song. It's a little harder over Zoom. Uh, but the feelings are very present in the soft mind, in the soft heart connected to mind space, and that is the space that I have in my experience is what is required to truly be able to receive, perceive, this incredible place that we have been placed in, this Mother Earth, this magical and mysterious Mother Earth. So I wanted us to do a little meditation here, and I am going to attempt to do something that I've never done before. And if it starts to go awry, I'm going to back off immediately because I'm very shy about it. But I want to try to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah, just bear with me, Pat. I'll just give you co-hosting rights. There you go. You should be able to do it now.
Okay. Now I gotta find where.
Okay.
I won't be able to pull this off. Let's see, why is it not? Oh, hold on one second.
You should have the option to share now, I think.
Yeah, I had queued up something, but it's in another hoodie-doo, the technical term. Hold on. Okay, maybe it's not going to let me do what I want to do because I don't know how to do it. Oh, wait, here we go. Let's see. Are you seeing what I'm seeing at this point?
Okay, can you hear us? We lost you there for a moment.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Pat?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Can you see what I'm seeing?
No. No.
Okay, I'm going to skip it then.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. No worries. No trouble.
Well, you know, I was debating, do I want to spend time watching something that you could go watch later on your own? But then I don't want you watching something later on your own. I want you out on the earth. So, but I'll go ahead and give you the link to it. It's actually my daughter doing something that was describing what I want to describe here. So oftentimes, you know, what I end up speaking about is what I'm working with personally in any given moment. And so this definitely falls into that category. So maybe we do need to go into a little bit of a meditative state here. So I'm going to ask you to get as comfortable as you can where you are, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and close your eyes if you are comfortable with that. As I'm speaking about this, just feel yourself, kind of feel the whatever is supporting your body underneath you. Let's go ahead and use our breath to regulate our thoughts and our nervous system and our way of perceiving. So we'll go ahead and take a couple deep breaths together. So let's inhale, exhale, longer exhale. Inhale again. Longer exhale. And one more time, inhale. Longer exhale. Just let everything come to rest for a moment. Ask your body to be receptive. Ask your heart and feeling center to be receptive. Ask your mind to suspend judgment, to suspend what it already knows, and just be receptive here. Ask your spirit to come and give you that ultimate discernment, to allow you to consider what is good and right for you to consider here. So in my life, what I do is I try on different belief systems. I try them on for a little while and just see how they fit. So that's what I'm going to ask of you for this moment. I'm going to ask you to try on a belief system that comes from the traditions that I am a part of, Dine Nation. She'e'ia tachi nashli aro ashi bashishi ma adishgejne dashanale klauschi davshiche kwataus dani nashli. And I ask you to consider this that comes also out of Lakota spiritual tradition. Introduce myself as Wayakpa Najiwi. So in Dene way of thinking, we come from original beauty. The origin of creation is beauty. We can say beauty, but beauty in the word hojo actually expands to include vitality, harmony, balance, joy, right relations, right mind, right heart, right body, right spirit. Original beauty, hojo. So I want to propose to your body, to your heart and feeling center, even to your mind, hopefully in alignment with your spirit, that it could be that this place that we have been put in, this Mother Earth, with a sky that is ever moving, the sun that is always traveling, clouds, mountains, streams, four-legged ones, flying ones, swimming ones, creepy crawly ones, stones, standing nation, the trees, all manner of plants, the air which is the gift from all of the plants to us, and we expire the gift back to them, expressing our life that gives them life. Constant interchange, constant interactions of possibilities for more life, for more thriving life. Everything in motion, everything being changed and transformed from these encounters, encounter after encounter. Every sunrise an encounter. As we stand, the child, in the middle of a powerful, powerful conversation between our holy star and this Mother Earth. A conversation that's been going on for longer than we have numbers for. conversation that elicits abundant, powerful, really, really, truly unstoppable life force out of this Mother Earth. I say, whatever that holy star, that Father Sun is saying to our mother, she likes it. He knows what to say to her. Because in this conversation, as a result of it, life just tumbles out of her continuously, ever evolving, all creative forms. And we are a child in the middle of this conversation between our passionate parents. Original beauty. What if there's nothing to improve? What if there's nothing to achieve? What if there's nothing to do better at? What if there's no requirement to be better? To try to be without sin? To try to be a better environmentalist? To try to be a magical peacemaker? With all of this teeming life, with all of this flowing water, flowing all over the earth, through the sky, through our bodies, with all of the encounters between day and night, sunrise, sun zenith, sunset. What if standing in the middle of this passionate conversation, what if all that is really asked of us is to rest in original beauty? What if we just hit the jackpot by being placed on this incredible, living, dynamic, creative, pulsing, one heartbeat every 10,000 years? We stand in that heartbeat. What if all that is asked of us is to perceive the beauty of this place? What if all that is required of us is to acknowledge, to feel gratitude, to feel awe, to feel all the connection and relationship? What if that's all that's asked of us? There have been human beings that have connected with this place, like the trout in the river that is in deep meditation, just the slightest movement of the fins, dreaming, perceiving, feeling. There are human beings who have spent all their time in praise of being here. There are human beings who use all of their will, all of this free will that we have been gifted, considering how to become and be that being that causes all life to thrive. No other consideration for the right use of will. No building empire. No building wealth and retirement. Just trying to understand how to be in community. How can I be a better community member in all of this beauty? What would it be like to live as a being who is gifted the opportunity to walk on earth, born into original beauty? Feel the sensations in the body as I say those words. Being gifted the opportunity to walk on this Mother Earth, born into original beauty. What does that do to your breath? What kind of feelings arise? What kind of tension does it bring up? What kind of release? How does the body express that release? Notice it. So let's inhale together again. Exhale longer. Inhale again. Exhale. Inhale again. Exhale. I'll ask you to slowly begin to move your hands, your feet, wiggle your toes, move your spine a little. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Come back into this world of original beauty. Hosho. So I bring this up to us because, and maybe this is because of my family's history. Maybe some of you know about the history of the residential boarding schools here in what we now call the United States. That it was a mechanism used to disrupt and destroy culture. It was a radical plan for assimilation. Didn't only take place here in what we now call the United States, other places in the world as well, where the children were kidnapped and taken to these schools and were honestly forced to abandon original beauty and come into, in my family's case, literally a belief and worldview of original sin. My grandparents and parents were taken into Dutch Christian Reformed missionary boarding schools. And so our family's connection to our culture was severed. There were members of my family who could speak our language, but they never spoke it with me. And there were members of my family who knew some of our ceremonies and our songs, but they abandoned them at that point. And so perhaps this is why this is coming up for me as I'm perpetually doing healing work around these traumas. But I just have this sense that that viewpoint, the puritanical viewpoint that originated in Christianity, but it began to expand in other ways, about how we are with money, about how we are with children, about how we are with education in so many different ways. So the idea was that you had to strive to be worthy. It's a very deep underlying principle, to be worthy of anything, love, life, grace, and that you were to also be selfless, but at the same time you were also supposed to be prosperous and diligent and work hard. So I don't know how it is in other countries, but here the way it plays out in the United States with this ferocious capitalism is you're supposed to be selfless, generous, but you're also supposed to win at this game of the power over paradigm. I always use this symbol, this power over paradigm, in which you must beat out another in order to get what you need. It is not conducive to cooperation and collaboration. And yet, here we are. We live in a place that is the epitome of a collaborative organism. The same way that our own physical human body is a collaboration and a cooperation, so is the Mother Earth. And we are the Mother Earth. She's not separate from us. She's not over there and we're over here. We are part of the singular organism, right? And so I keep thinking that that puritanical viewpoint is actually preventing us from really having a true ethic, a true thriving life ethic. As long as we keep living in supposed to, have to, as long as we keep living out of a place of fear of ourselves and shame of who we believe we are. I say right now humanity has a very low self-esteem as a species. We think that everything we touch we destroy. What a painful point of view. What a painful indictment of our kind. So I always have to point out that, for instance, this is one for instance of many on the planet. For instance, when the ships came to this continent that I sit on right now, what did they say? What were their accounts when they arrived? They said they couldn't believe their eyes, how lush, how flowering and fruiting this land was. Game plentiful, waters pure, beautiful. No, what they said to us, and it's in our psyches, and this is what I want to interrupt. I want to interrupt this belief system. They said, it's Eden. That implies that it had been undespoiled by the touch of human hands. It's paradise over here. And the reason that they felt like it had been untouched is because they felt like if human beings had touched this land, it would look like the land we're coming from. But it doesn't. Therefore, it must not have been touched by human hands. But what I want to point out is all through this continent, there were millions of human beings already here. There were civilizations that had risen and fallen. but there was a different understanding of how to use this free will. So I say we're in this incredible spiritual setup. Genius. Kind of almost a diabolical genius, because it's really tough to be given absolute free will to do anything and everything you can think of. I mean, look at us, we're doing it. But then the truth of the matter is every single thing we do affects every other being on this planet. There's no getting around it. The water tells that story. We are so interrelated, so interconnected. So I feel like sometimes I think that traveling through these 5 worlds, it's all been a refinement. It's all been a reckoning with having to understand the construct of this earth, which is that it's all connected and you get to do whatever you want. So it seems to me then that the task is to understand how to govern, how to orient. I'm going to throw out that word govern. Let's just dismiss. How to orient our will. How do we orient this free will? What should it be oriented towards? I experiment with prayer all the time. And my prayer at the moment is to ask, how do I become that being that causes all other life to thrive? And the reason I'm asking that question is because when I look out, my mother lives in suburbia here, but even so, when I look out the window, she has this beautiful umbrella catalpa tree, I believe it is. But everything out there, even in the desert, even in the drought in the desert, everything out there is doing one thing. It's trying to figure out the way to make more life, make more life, make more life, make more life, make more life. So I say the plan here on Earth, it's life. It's life. It's pretty simple. It's life. It's life. And so when I look at every being out there, what I realize is not only is it trying to find a way to continue its own life and have its next 7 generations the same as us, but the way it goes about its life actually causes all the other life around it to thrive. That's incredible. I mean, talk about masters. In this huge symphony of life where we're having encounter upon encounter, every encounter creating new circumstances, new possibilities, new everything. And these trees, these birds, these ants, these cactus have found the way to direct their will in such a way that not only do they thrive, but they cause everything else to thrive. So this is my inquiry. I say that we could not have been placed here with all these other beings if we did not also have the capacity to do this. And this is the teaching of the sacred hoop, the sacred medicine wheel, that every life form was given a place on this sacred hoop. And every member who was given a place on the sacred hoop, I usually hold it like this actually, has to uphold their part. And if any member does not uphold their part, then the integrity of the hoop, the whole hoop, begins to fail. Even if all the other members are going at it in perfection, if any member doesn't, then the integrity of the hoop begins to fail. So I say that since we were given a place on this sacred hoop, we must have a perfect design for thriving life. Our own thriving life, but being able to cause all the rest of the hoop also to have its thriving life. There's so much teaching in that sacred hoop. We don't have time for it all here and now, but I wanted to bring that in. So what if I'm trying this on? What if I'm born into original beauty? What if I'm born with free will that I can direct in any way I choose for any purpose that I choose? Now, we'll go back to that place of saying we can do anything we want, and here we are doing anything we want, any possible thing we can think up to do. So we seem to be allowed to do it. But there is a caveat to that. We get to the end of that because we might be able to do any old thing we dream up to do, but we might not be able to continue to have life on this earth. So it's not only, my truth, my will. There is a truth. And it says if you go too far out of the limits of the construct, just the very foundational way that the earth is made, you will lose this life. So there is a truth that holds all the truths. There is an ultimate truth in my mind. And it has to do with the laws of earth. So what if I am this blessed creature that gets to walk among all this life, be dazzled by creation, as my clan grandfather said, coming upon temptation? What's the temptation? The temptation is wrong use of will. I kind of hate to use that word, but wrong meaning using the will in such a way that it disrupts this construct, this sacred hoop construct. But when I look at different human beings around the world, what I see is they found ways. So right now we see changing the use of our will as kind of it's a scolding. Shame on you. Shame on you for doing what you're doing. Shame on you for wanting what you're wanting. Shame on you for that plastic wrapper. Shame on you for, and I'm not saying that those things are not to be considered. They are. But what I'm trying to get to is, what is the root of the motivation for what we are doing? If it is shame, if it is original sin as an environmentalist, if it is original sin as a corrupt human being who can only be a destroyer, I don't think we can go where we would like to go, which is to rejoin the sacred hoop in thriving life again. So that's what I wanted to work on here with us this morning, is changing that place of origin for where our action comes from, for where our perceiving of where we are comes from. I don't want to see myself as a corrupt being, an anomaly of thriving life paradigm. I want to accept that I am a member, a full-fledged, valid, capable, worthy member of the sacred hoop of life. So I have a lot to learn because I have been misled. I have been misled by human constructs, and they've been running for at least 5,000 years, the most recent round. And I'm talking about the constructs that we have created without placing life at the center, without considering right use of will, right mind, right heart, right body, right spirit. Right meaning it is leading towards life. It is contributing to the life of not only me and the 7 generations ahead, but all the life around me and their 7 generations ahead. I want to acknowledge that this has been a really radical realization for me, and it actually came to me from my daughter, that the earth cannot fulfill her ultimate capacity. She cannot be her highest earth without us. She can go on and be an earth without us, I'm pretty sure. But she cannot be her highest, most fulfilled expression of earth without us. Take that in for a moment. There is much in the universe, in the cosmos, that depends upon us for its well-being and for its joy and for its pleasure of existing. I feel like this is what my people hold when we sing our songs, when we dance our dances, with all the feeling that comes up and all the deep, deep community. In the ceremonial dances, no one is trying to stand out and be better than everyone else. The beauty comes from the unity and the unison. Us, for an expression of us, and offering this beauty back to the beauty that is showering us, that is bombarding us from all directions, from Earth, from that heartbeat, one heartbeat every 10,000 years, reverberating through us, reverberating through the birds, reverberating through the roots of the trees. So hopefully you get the idea of what I'm saying here. I want to step out of sustainability and I want to step into mad love affair. Who needs sustainability when you can have a mad love affair? So that's what I propose for your walk on the land this evening. I propose that you see if you can feel and witness for yourself the reverberation of that heartbeat, that one heartbeat every 10,000 years from the Mother Earth. See if you can perceive it. See if you can witness it in all the life around you. And then I'm going to also talk to you a little bit. I don't know, maybe I should open for comments or questions now and then go a little bit more into the exercises. Would that be good, do you think?
I think that would be great, Pat. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let's do that then.
Could you just repeat, we're the Wi-Fi's a little, just repeat that, with the walk on the land this evening, your invitation was to?
My invitation was to see if you are able to perceive the vibration of standing in that one heartbeat every 10,000 years.
Right.
What does that feel like in your body? Can you perceive it in all the life that you're walking among as you walk the land?
Great, thank you so much. So I think we've got just under half an hour left. And if you've got a question for Pat, it'd be great, ideally, if you could come and just sit at the front, and just share your name, so that Pat can see your face rather than just some tiny face in the background. So please just step forward if you have a question or a comment to give.
Hi, Pat. I'm Louise. Thank you for your time today. Hi. I don't know if this is relevant, but it's something that I'm really questioning at the moment. So I joined a group that deal with plant heritage, and they protect plants. And I guess I've been thinking whether that's a good thing or not, because they're plants that have been propagated by human beings for about 100 years, but they're bred by human beings, they're taken from nature and they're kind of grown and then they're sold commercially. And I've been wondering where we draw the line with respects to what it looks like for life to be thriving and our kind of place in that, and how do we know whether that's right or wrong in what we're doing. I just don't know where do you draw the line? Like, how do I know if it's right to be protecting plants that have been eventually bred by human beings, in a way, like that we've cultivated them, we've taken something from nature and we've cultivated them, but is that right or wrong? I just don't know whether that's what I should be spending my time doing and what it looks like for life to be thriving, even though I love them, but I also am really acutely aware of our human intervention in that creation, you know, in that those things being created.
Thank you. So that brings up about 5 different subjects, but anyway,
Sorry.
let's see if I can consolidate here a little bit. So the first thing that came up is Martin Prechtel. If you don't know his work, he's really beautiful. He's kind of fierce. He's a little bit scary too, but his books are very beautiful. As a human being, he's kind of intimidating, which I don't say very much about very many human beings. But he talks about the enslavement of the corn, and he talks about the enslavement of tobacco. The corn being a medicine that has seen us through on this continent in particular. There's some white ceremonial corn that my son grew. And sustained us, and then it got taken in and modified, and now it's actually something that actually creates an illness in many indigenous people, the varieties that are grown now, creating diabetes and such. And he talks about the same with the tobacco being such a sacred helper to us. You know, some of these plants agreed, that's what we say, that's what the elders said in the ceremonies, that they agreed to help us pitiful human beings. That's something that is said a lot in the Lakota language. And I objected to it early on. I was like, what do you mean pitiful human being? I'm not a pitiful human being. But the more I look at it, the more I wonder. Really, so this brings me back to the sacred hoop, and it also brings me back to this idea of the free will construct. So this they say Earth is a free will construct. Not every place where beings live out lives is a free will construct, but this one is. And so the flip side of free will is consent. And consent is a really deep spiritual tool, or gift, maybe I should say. In that, along with free will, we have to mind when our free will is trespassing upon another free will. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I'm talking about this sacred hoop. And this is why I'm so concerned with wanting to be a being that causes all other life to thrive. I no longer want to be a being that feels like I have the right or the freedom, or whatever we want to call it, to trespass over any other life form's ability to live out its perfect design for thriving life. So when we interfere with these plants, you're so right, that can be a trespass. But there have been so many collaborations between human beings and plants, right? That's how we eat our salad. That's how we eat our, that's how indigenous peoples have had this relationship with corn and squash and beans, and in Europe other plants in what we call agriculture. So agriculture doesn't necessarily acknowledge the sovereignty of all beings. However, we have, so I say we don't get to violate another person's life trajectory, another being's life trajectory, without a consequence, without there being a spiritual accounting due. So some people might call that karma. But I want to say that my daughter is getting her PhD in traditional land management practices, and it turns out that here, in what we call the United States, human beings were cultivating and collaborating. So here's the thing: collaborating with plant relatives and creating these huge hardwood nut forests, and they're so vast that scientists are only beginning to grok, modern scientists are only beginning to grok how deep and how intricate the land cooperation and collaboration was between indigenous people, other humans on Earth who were tending vast areas of land. But it wasn't a dominance, and it wasn't about making a mark, and it wasn't about bending the life forms to our will. It was about allowing and being in cooperation and collaboration. So that brings me to point number 3 about what you're raising here is we have to be able to talk with the plants. Now, in modern world paradigm, we are taught that that sort of talk is woo-woo and heading into dangerous territory and can make you questionable in general. I get to say that because I'm an indigenous woman. I'm expected to say that. But not everybody is given that freedom. We've been deeply conditioned to believe that only the crudest of our senses are reliable, that only what can be perceived in the intellect is real. So our understanding of reality has been so deeply governed by our science, where you have to be able to observe it, weigh it, measure it, and the clincher is you have to be able to repeat it in order for it to be real. That goes completely against indigenous science. And so I'm going to make the case for indigenous science by saying, if sustainability is the highest and most sought after technology on the planet, who should we be talking to? We should be talking to those peoples who've lived in one place over an extended period of time, 1,000 years, 5,000 years, 10,000 years in relative health, harmony, and happiness. These are the true holders of the science of sustainability. And their practices go far beyond intellect. Their practices include song and dance. They have a broad spectrum of ways of knowing. The human being has a broad spectrum of ways of knowing. And so a big part of our being able to understand right relations, such as what you're describing there with your plant relatives, is how do we be able to perceive when we're violating their sovereignty? We have to be able to have a relationship with them. We have to be able to have some way of receiving consent. We have to be in consensual relationship with them. That's what you're describing there. And so I'm going to say that one of our first tasks, and I invite you again to consider this on the land. Maybe you know a song, a favorite song you have. What happens if you sing that song while you're out on the land? What does that open for you? What kind of perception does it open for you? So our perception has been narrowed down to this. And as I always say, try having a love affair with somebody through intellect alone. How successful, how satisfying is that? We miss a lot of mystery and a lot of magic when we try to do it that way. And so it's the same with our relationship with Mother Earth and with your plant relatives. So we're going to have, I believe, in order for us to have the sustainability that we're after, we're going to have to open up our ways of perceiving. That is the way human beings have been able to have a symbiotic relationship with place. That was a long answer to one question, but there you go.
Sorry, thank you.
Hi Pat, it's Yvonne. So when you said Earth can't fulfill capacity without us, she can't achieve a fullest expression of Earth without us, I was interested in that because our lack of relationship has destructed a lot. So, but you've just turned that upside down. So I just wanted to hear more thoughts about that.
Well, this is something a little bit new that I'm feeling into. I mean, it stands to reason, or at least the kind of logic that I have that now incorporates ceremony and song and lots of play and other things. And so, yeah, I really feel, so there's this idea that, you know, so to say, go back to my own lineage, So I was raised in the Dutch Christian Reformed Church as a young person first. Was completely severed from my culture. I didn't really start into indigenous ceremony until I was 29. Um, and so it's been quite a journey. You know, I say it's coming a homecoming for me. So that's why I say my greatest gift to the world is describing this journey, because I think we're all looking for a similar journey if indeed we want to flourish again on earth and with earth. And so in this, so this is sort of new dawning as elders who were not severed from these cultures have talked to me. You know, they always spoke about us as though we were beloved, 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 beloved to Creator, beloved to creation, and that we have such a place of nobility. And we're also the babies on the block. So while we can simultaneously have nobility, we can simultaneously have this really inherent honor, and we can still need to be deeply humble to all the rest of the life around us, and learn, right? And so for me, I realize that it's come to be a really baseline foundation that much of the world does not get to have. They haven't had elders talking to them. Every time you're in ceremony, these same things are named over and over and over again. And so they come in. And so it's a big part of my perception, but what a tragic thing that most of the world does not get to hear that and have this sense of this nobility, of this sense of inherent honor. I can uphold the honor of being human being. No matter what else goes down in this world, no matter what's coming, I'm going to uphold the honor of being human being. And so, you know, to be this human being, and I'm going to say indigenous people have made a lot of headway into this understanding of how do I be a human that causes all other life to thrive. So again, in modern world right now, there's a lot of don't do this and don't do that, and you better stop this and you must not do that, and what a horrible human you are if you know. But to flip that, I think it's so crucial that we flip that and begin to come from this sense of this not only original beauty but original honor, original integrity, and know that the earth rejoices. The earth rejoices in our song, the earth rejoices in our dance, and she responds. The clouds can respond. In other times, in other years, I have had the clouds respond to me over and over again. There's no question that that happens. Now we're interfering with things in the sky, and I gotta say, it hasn't been so easy. It hasn't been so easy, but the way she responds, the way the animals respond to us when we approach with reverence. So one of the ways to approach with reverence, I'm going to say this, I don't know how many questions we're going to get to here, but I'm going to say that the way that we can approach with reverence is with the offering. So I know Martha Murray, we talked about this when I was at Dartington Hall and Dartington Estate over there at Schumacher College, but you know, there are different offerings that are known in different parts of the world. And so I know when I was working with a lot of folks in the UK, they decided that maybe their traditional offering was oats. It would be something that is, we call staple, but we could say it's one of our oldest friends that we have this cooperative, collaborative, symbiotic relationship with. So for us, it's cornmeal, and for Dinewe, it's cornmeal. In Lakota, it's tobacco. But to go out anytime so this is another thing I would say is and if you don't have that offering, so I didn't think about asking you to do that. Another offering that has also been used is to take one hair. To take one hair and offer. But I would recommend that when you go out in the evening, that you state your purpose, you know, state your intention. But it's not only about stating it, it's asking, it's coming in humility. And saying, I understand that I am a part of all of you, and I have so much to learn, and I want to learn. And so I am out here to open my perception to understand. You know, I say we need to understand who we are, where we are, how it is. So, Holy Mother Earth, I'm looking and I'm asking you to inform me. Guide and direct my footsteps to the people, places, and events, to the beings here on this land that can give me insight. Speak to me in a way that I can understand, also with my conscious mind, because I'm looking to understand how to be human being here now. And when we approach in that way, it opens up. It opens our perception, and everything around us comes to attention also, and saying, oh my goodness, because think about it. Normally we're just tromping around. Oh, I like this flower, yank. Oh, I mean, I'm not saying you do, but this is like the archetypal bad human being, that just walks around and tramps on things and squashes bugs and grabs flowers, and there's no consent. There's no consensual relationship at all. So as we go out, and even as we're looking to understand our self and our way with earth, that's in some way an extraction. So the offering is a way of making it consensual, of asking, this is what I'm seeking. This is how I want to come to you. Please meet me. Please, who's willing to meet me? And then take note. So we have to begin to cultivate and exercise our ability to perceive who's coming to meet, because sometimes that has also been dulled. When it's all up here and we're all in here and we're all on here, which I am a little too much lately, our perceptions get dulled to these sweet, delicate, sometimes not so subtle and delicate, but sometimes delicate and subtle meetings that are coming our way as a result of our asking. But that practice of asking, and so we're asking at dusk, which is an interesting time to be asking when you go out on the land this evening, but also at dawn. Dawn is the classic moment for human beings all over the world have been greeting that holy star coming up to begin that conversation with the Mother Earth wherever we are, with offering. That is a gesture that is known by the whole life community and also by the spiritual helper community. So to go out and offer, make offering to each of the four directions, starting with the east where the sun is coming up, moving to the south, to the west, to the north, above, below, and at the center, acknowledging ourself and the Holy Spirit moving through everything. We are a part of it. We acknowledge ourself at the center and say, tell me what it is that I need to know. Be real. I'm not hearing you. I'm trying, but I still don't hear you, and I'm getting frustrated. Be real. I asked and you sent this thing to me, and boy, I wasn't expecting that. It's a little overwhelming to me. I'm a little frightened by it. Help me. Help me to integrate. Be real.
Thank you for that. That's great.
Do we have time for one more, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I got all the time, so you just tell me. I know your sun's going down over there, though.
No, it's not going down for a few hours. It's midsummer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're pretty far north.
Hi, Pat. Morphe.
Hello, so happy to see you.
Yeah, Andy. Yeah, since seeing you, I think it was at Schumacher, 4 years ago, with that question you took around, or you gave, what is the sacred masculine without the power over paradigm? And been sort of on that journey. And part of it is just calling in my own ancestors. So I just want to call in my own ancestors as well around the sort of Sufi path and honoring the space that you've created, and just to call in that as well, because I find that supports me. I always have a line, which means I seek refuge in the truth, away from that which takes us away from life, or from puts us in denial. I think the one you talk about, song and heart song, one of the things I did just a few years ago, just after this journey, was going into this forest in Thailand and really hearing this song that said, you know, needing to bring back a song to the West. And when I was taking part in XR with Gail Bradbrook, there was a few of us doing this medicine circle. And in that medicine circle, there was this sense of, for myself, about thriving, of life having turned away. And I couldn't work out what had made life turn away from humanity or from us. And I listened to a talk of yours recently about consent, and I said this thing about consent, and what do we consent to? What are we consenting to? What have we denied? And it just made me remember and connect a few things. And so what I will ask at the end of this is, and it's quite a long thing, but it's around if you could think of a song of forgiveness, like the song that you gave, because it's so there's a book called If Women Rose Rooted, and in that story, If Women Rose Rooted, there's a story of the women of the waters, and in that story, the Fisher King, it's the story of consent, but he takes something that isn't being permitted to be given. And I don't know if you know the work of the Wheel of Consent. And the Wheel of Consent talks about this relationship of offer and receive, but also another relationship called take and permit. And this other relationship is this kind of hidden relationship, which just sort of brought to my mind about the Fisher King, that in a way, taking is not forbidden, but taking without permission is what breaks that spiritual law, if you want to call it in that way, and that breaks the sovereignty of all beings, that there may be a taking, but there still needs to be the asking to take, which is a different, take for one's own, which is if you look at the wheel, I'm just sort of working my way around this, but it's just trying to see that there are two kinds of relationships which are different. And so that song of forgiveness, it's just a question around whether this sounds true, and the need for this sense of that because we took without asking for permission, that how do we, and it's a project I'm trying to work on, but it's trying to root that sense of a need for a song that can keep something vibrant and alive and in this conversation. So I just wanted to ask whether you might feel that you might have capacity, if I can just articulate it better afterwards, but that for this song of forgiveness around this ancestral taking without sort of permission.
So can you say for me again, it was take and permit, and what was the other one?
The other one is, the other one is giving and receiving. So it says, what would you like from me to give to you? And someone says, I would like to, or nature says, I would like you to do X, Y, and Z. And then you say, yes, I can do that. I can offer the flowers to you. So that's the take, that's the give and receive that we often have in relationships as well, in the male and female. Take something from you, and the other one permits that and says, I can permit that taking. And that's the one where, particularly in the male, and I feel this in my body a lot, where I've not honored that because I didn't know that I was taking. I thought I was giving, but actually in some deeper part, I was taking. And it's the forgiveness around not having the map to have known that I was taking when actually I thought I was giving. So it's trying to reorientate this map that seems to have disappeared, or that we've somehow lost.
Well, thank you. Thank you for naming this, and also thank you for the work and this inquiry that you're in. It's really important, and I'm really excited to know that you're doing that. So, because as you know, consent is a kind of an obsession of mine, and I'll have to look into this wheel of consent because I don't know about that. So, well, I want to back up just a moment before we talk about that forgiveness. So here's the other crazy part of our spiritual lay of the land. Our spiritual setup and that is that on the one hand, we have to acknowledge the sovereignty of all beings. It is not correct to interrupt the life trajectory of any being just because, it's a big deal to do that. It has to be considered deeply, deeply, deeply. And the truth of our situation is everything has to eat something else. Everything has to eat something else. Whether you're vegan and you're gonna interrupt a carrot's life, you are, and so, um, so what does that say to us? What is that telling us? What is that telling me? I just keep thinking about this, and I'm like, so I have to eat something in order to have my life, which means I have to interrupt another life. So what does that mean? And so the key isn't that I can't eat anything because I can't interrupt another life. That's obviously not the construct here. So what that means is that one, that all my relationships, even with what I'm eating, even with what I'm wearing, there has to be a relationship involved. There can be no consent without a relationship. So this is why, it's not something sentimental only. It can have some sentimentalness to it, but it's not only a sentimental gesture when indigenous people make an offering before they eat or before they harvest a plant. It's not just sweet. It's actually a part of this relationship building and consent. So when I go to harvest sage, because the sage offered itself to human beings to be a part of our well-being and a part of our spiritual opening, expansion, understanding, a way to clean ourselves and be able to begin again. Sage has offered that to human beings. Sage volunteered, I'll help those guys. Tobacco said, I'll help those guys. Cedar said, I'll help those guys. So there's all these different plants that have offered, we say, that volunteered to be helpers to human beings. So they're offering, but at the same time, I still need to be in consent with them. So when I lay down my tobacco before I harvest, I talk to them and I say, one, anybody who's willing to come with me, and here's the reason. I'm a pitiful human being. You guys know I'm a pitiful human being. I'm trying to figure out a bunch of stuff here, and I fumble and I fall and I get greedy and I get lazy, but I also have huge heart and huge feeling. I also really reach for the light. I really reach for right relations. I'm all of those things. But I know you're my elder and I'm reaching for you. So if you're willing to come and help me and the other human beings that are going to gather, and we're going to call upon you to help us. If you're willing to do that, then make yourselves known to me. And then I go through the plants and I see, I just have this feeling. It takes a little while. First you might say, oh, I don't know if I'm feeling it or not. But, you've set that intention, you make a beginning and you try to discern. And that pretty soon that discernment is going to get more and more honed and capable, right? So that's what I do. And then I also pray, so I'm laying down tobacco, another plant, on behalf of the sage, and I'm saying to them, may your family thrive. May you always have water. May you continue on all the way into the future forever and ever, because I'm always going to want to have this relationship with you. My children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, I want them to know who you are and have a relationship with you. So may you continue on and grow and thrive. All this happens before I collect. So this is a way of making relationships. So what is the highest form of relationship? I'm going to say it's love. It's love. This is why a mad love affair with Earth versus sustainability. No, mad love affair with Earth. So I have to be in consent. So life turning away. I'm not going to refute that. I might not be listening carefully enough, because I have this sense that sometimes I think we humans, and maybe myself, what is that word? We anthropomorphize everything around us. We want it to behave like we do. We project our own behavior and our own way of thinking upon other parts of the living cycle around us. And so I hear people say all the time, Mother Earth is so pissed. She is very angry with us. She is so angry. That's why she's doing this and this and this. And I myself, I back off of that. And I say, I don't know. In all my ceremony life, in all my relationship, I've never experienced the Mother Earth as being vindictive. Never. Which makes me want to cry because she has every reason to be very vindictive. But I don't experience her that way. I experience her way of moving. She's all about balance. So if something becomes unbalanced, she works to balance it. And sometimes, whole forests disappear in the process. Sometimes whole shelves of land drop into the ocean. And because she's like this incredible being that's rebalancing herself, and these dramatic things happen, right? They're dramatic. But I don't see it as vengeance. I just see it as her way. It's impartial. Yeah. So for me, it's hard to imagine life turning away. And so I'm not saying this to refute what you're saying, but since you're touching on that whole piece, I'm just saying, how I experience things. So forgiveness. I think for me, what I would ask of this Mother Earth is, well, one, I think that's a huge point. We have been misled. We have been led away from placing life at the center. I don't know if I ever got to that point when I was talking about all the systems, governance, government, economy, health, education, all these systems created without placing life at the center. Now we are it's being demanded of us. You guys better put life at the center or else, like you got to start thinking about this. And that or else isn't vindictive. It's or else the laws of how this place functions are going to catch up with you. And so I say, how can we we can't really turn to these systems to help us address what these systems have created. They can't really help us there. So that means, this is another reason why I feel so strongly about trying to make myself available to speak from a perspective of human beings who live under the exact same circumstances, exact same sky, exact same water, exact same earth, same need to eat, same need for food, clothing, and shelter, But their way of thinking about being human here, their way of going about it is radically different than in this construct. So I at least want to be some kind of example of saying, hey, I think we get to choose what kind of human being we're going to be here. This is one way, and this is another way. And there may be some other ways that we all need to explore together. I suspect that is true. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you so much for your inquiry and question.
Kind of run out of time, so we'll finish there. But I would love us to make some kind of expression of appreciation for.
Well, I realize we're over time, but I would like to say one word about owl before we close.
Please, please.
Sorry, I know we're all sitting down an awful long time here. Thank you. I tend to be a downloader more than an experiential person, so I feel like if I can download enough and deeply enough, then you're going to go out into your own experiences. So I don't know if that's actually true, but that tends to be my way, as Justine is aware. But I wanted to talk about owl, because I asked you to consider owl. So owl, first of all, I would tell you the whole long story about how owl came to me, but I don't think we have time for that right now. But just to say that owl was presented to me as being a creature to be avoided, associated with death, a bringer of death. And so culturally, in Dine way even, I was told, ooh, owl, don't even say that word. Definitely don't bring any feathers, or, we just don't want to hear anything about owl. Well, I came to find another relationship with owl. Owl kept coming to me in all different ways, literally, but also in stories, also anyway. So it turns out that here I am, a Dine woman, and owl, when I asked, the first time I ever asked, I didn't even want to ask because I didn't trust my perception. And I thought, you know, I don't want to know what my totem is. I don't want to know who my animal family is, because everybody wants to be the eagle or the bear or the elk or something. And, you know, what if you're like the platypus, or what if you're like, you know, the centipede, or I don't know, something that's not so glamorous, right? And so I didn't even want to ask. But I finally asked, and to my amazement and kind of horror and surprise, Owl claimed me and said, "Guess we're your family." And I just thought, oh my gosh, my life is over. I'm a Dine woman who has owl for my primary animal family. Well, I had to start understanding a little bit more about who owl was. So this is what I want us to think about when we go out and you have this owl family there. That's so precious. So to me now, I will say that owl is the most loving, in my opinion, animal. And because the owl is the only animal that will accompany us through death. She will see us through to the other side. So she's not the bringer of death, but she appears when death is imminent because she's there to accompany. But it gets expanded from there, because owl is actually also sees us basically through any irreversible change. So I always see owl as sitting on a gate post, and there's the gate. And people are passing through this way or this way, and owl is there at that moment. But it doesn't matter whether you're going this way or that way. If you're going this way, you're not going to come back that way. And if you're going this way, you're not going to come back the other way. Like there is a change that's boom. So that there is a solemnity and a seriousness about owl that way. We could know when she's here that there's something afoot like that. So here you are with this owl family. You've presented yourself for something, and I'm going to say it's deep. It's profound what you've showed up here for. That's to me what owl would say. And how interesting, new owl life. So there's a newness to passing through and going through an irreversible change. There's a birth. Just as with death, there's a birth into whatever comes next, right? And so the other thing that I wanted to say about owl is obviously this perception, this ability to see deeply into things. It's scary for people. I'm scary to people sometimes, and less and less. I feel like I'm as I grow more comfortable and less shame-filled and etc. I'm not so much that kind of owl, but yeah, I feel like I do see into things, and so that was what I was thinking about as you walk the land at dusk. That's a tricky time for the eyes, and that's why owl, you know, thrives at that hour, is because all the other beings are a little disoriented. They can't see so well, but owl has that vision. So I'm going to ask us to call upon the owl and to ask for that owl vision, to begin to perceive some of the things that I was talking about, to begin to perceive, you know, what is this change that you have somehow signed up for here? Profound. It's a deep change. And even this change that we are in the world, the way of being human in the world is going to change. And I don't know if we're ever going to go back. So I wanted to bring that in about owl and in this time of your walk on the land. And that's probably enough to say about it for now. And I will send the link to the thing that I wanted to show you, that my daughter, her video. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say, Justine. Thank you. And thanks for bearing with me of going over time. I'm a little long-winded.
Oh, thank you so much, Pat. I wonder if we could just have a moment of silence and a kind of inner bow to Pat's teachings as an expression of appreciation. Thank you so much.
Yes, a big bow to the fire, to the water. And thank you. Thank you all for your journey and what you're doing there. Blessings.
Okay, God bless. I'll be in touch soon.
Okay. Good evening. Bonsoir.
Take care, Pat. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Thanks.